Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me on episode 9 of the show about the show. My name is Devlin Clark. As always, I am the host and creator of this episode and this podcast, which can be found on iTunes by searching the show about the show. I have a great guest tonight. I'm very excited. He's a former Major League Baseball player with the Minnesota Twins and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. He also is the current minor league manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates AA team, the Altoona Curve, and we are going to be speaking with him about all that and a funny incident that happened in a game against the Indians in 2003. So, lots to get to this evening on this episode. Michael Ryan. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Good, Devlin. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hey, thank you very much for coming on. Want to start out, you were drafted in the 5th round by the Minnesota Twins in 1996. Can you kind of talk about the process leading up to the draft and then getting that phone call?
Yeah, sure. First of all, appreciate you having me on tonight. Looking forward to the interview. I'm excited also. Just a little bit about the process, I guess, about getting drafted. I'm a northeastern guy. You know, I was playing high school baseball up north, high school right outside of Pittsburgh. So we had 18 games in my senior year in high school. So to have some scouts show up, it was odd, but was fortunate enough to go to a showcase camp where I did pretty well and started to show up to some games and would have me do some private workouts. And the better that I was playing in high school, I would go and was fortunate enough to be invited to some private workouts at some major league stadiums, and I guess that's put me on the map. And luckily I was drafted by Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you kind of talk about, obviously a lot of people never know what it's like to play Major League Baseball. Can you kind of talk about the days leading up to the draft? Did you know you were going to get drafted? And then kind of talk about getting that call. I would imagine it probably came from Terry Ryan or one of his front office people. Actually,
I had been told that there was a chance that I would get drafted. I just wasn't sure where. I wasn't sure what round. I was told, you're told different things. You could go early, you could go late. It depends on, what your signability is. Depends on if you're even interested or do you want to go to college. So the day of the draft, I had a bunch of close friends and a lot of family over to the house. And it's back in the old days, they didn't have the draft on TV. You just basically waited for a phone call. And there's probably about 2:15 in the afternoon. The phone rang from a place that we didn't recognize, and I answered it, and it was my scout for Minnesota. His name's Gene DeBoer. Gene DeBoer called me and told me that the Minnesota Twins just drafted me in the 5th round. So after that, I received some phone calls from Terry Ryan, the area, and also the area scout the national scout that came to see a couple of my high school games, and they just welcomed me into the organization. So it's exciting and I guess nerve-wracking at the same time because I knew that I had a pretty big decision to make as far as signing a pro contract or going to go play college baseball.
Absolutely. And was that a tough decision, or was that a pretty easy decision?
Pretty easy decision. My dream was always to play in the major leagues. So, it's just like every kid's dream when they're younger.
Right.
I thought that might be a way to go about it, or maybe have it get done a little bit quicker if that was going to be a possibility than going to college. I was a 17-year-old kid, and 17-year-old kid that didn't come from much, when he gets offered a little bit of money, of course you're gonna take it.
You're gonna jump at that. Yeah, exactly.
So I decided to sign.
Absolutely. And was the signing process easy? Like, can you kind of talk about that whole process? Because I've talked to other players on here, and a few of them have said, they got drafted, but they didn't sign, and some of them said signing was a very, easy, no-brain decision like you just did. Can you kind of talk about the process about, drafting and then signing? And then did they tell you where you were going to go, AA, AAA, that kind of thing?
They didn't tell me anything where I was going to go play to start until after I signed a contract. But the whole negotiations was sort of stressful. I mean, we did some research as far as, my uncle helped me out dramatically, and my mother was there too a little bit, and they did some research on what the year prior, what that player got as far as the signing bonus from the Minnesota Twins and some other organizations. So, so we had an idea of what money we were going to get, and of course you're always going to try to ask for a little bit more and see, if they'll give it to you. But that took a couple of days, and then we finally settled. The interesting thing that happened was after I signed, I had gotten sent down to the GCL. It's the first level that I started at, and
sure.
About 3 days into that, I mean, it was tough. It was the first time I was ever away from home. The man that was my first agent, who was representing me, he was saying that my contract's not legal yet. I signed. They forgot to have me sign in a particular area, and if I wasn't happy or if I didn't want to go the pro ball route, then I could change my mind and just go back home. So I thought about it for 2 days, honestly, and so they sent me a new contract, but I ended up signing it. So I thought that was an interesting thing that had happened 3 days into a taste of pro ball. It wasn't as glamorous as it seemed, being stuck in the DCL. It's 95 degrees in Fort Myers, and no one's at the game, and it's not what was explained to you. So
right.
So I ended up, I just wanted to still chase my dream and sign a contract.
And you did that, absolutely. Excuse me, can you kind of talk about who else was in that draft signing class of yours that Twins fans might recognize?
Oh, man, I mean, that was the year that Minnesota drafted Travis Lee in the first round, and he ends up not signing with them. And
I think he ended up playing with the Diamondbacks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, I think that he actually got a pretty big contract as a free agent. Might have been with the Rays, Devil Rays at the time.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. It was a thing where if you didn't sign after a period of time, then you could, I guess, basically sign anywhere. Or
sure.
If a team didn't offer you a contract, then I think you were free to sign anywhere. And I know that he had told Minnesota that he wasn't going to sign with them from the beginning, so they never offered him a contract, I don't believe. So he went elsewhere. Jock Jones was in that draft as the second rounder.
Yep.
Chad Allen was the fourth rounder. Dan Say was the third rounder, I believe, and I'm not too sure who was after.
Okay. Yeah, Chad Allen is still in the Twins organization. He's actually the hitting coach in either AA or AAA for us.
Yeah, he's in
AAA.
Rochester, I believe.
Yeah, he's the Rochester hitting coach, and I know Jock is the hitting coach, hitting assistant, I guess, coach for the Washington Nationals here a year or two ago. One thing that I absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit. We're going to go into the 2000s. Obviously the Twins weren't very good in the late 90s. You signed a contract with them, obviously. You talked about signing and being drafted. And then the word contraction starts getting thrown around. The Twins were one of the teams that were threatening to be contracted in the late 90s, along with the Rays and a couple other teams. Can you talk about just kind of if you heard anything internally from the organization or what your thoughts were on possibly going, oh, man, I signed with a team that might no longer exist and I may not make it to the major leagues?
Yeah, I remember I remember hearing a lot of rumors and a lot of people talking that there was a very high possibility that the franchise was going to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. I believe that was the place that they were going to go.
Sure.
And it was actually a scary time. The Twins do a great job of, as younger players, teaching you the history of Minnesota Twins baseball and celebrating the two World Series teams and the great players that went through the organization. And the more that you learn about the organization, the more you feel part of, though. You understand the history and the great players that put on a Twins uniform. So it's very shocking that there was a possibility of them maybe moving to Charlotte. So, you don't know if they move to Charlotte that all of a sudden they become a big market team where they're going to be able to buy free agents, and your chances are, pretty slim of getting to the major leagues at that point. If they're going to be a high market team and be able to, have a huge payroll.
Yeah. Did the Twins tell players in the minor leagues or anybody at that time after they found out they weren't going to be contracted? Like, how did you hear that, when the decision was finally made that they're not going to be contracted? How did you hear that?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
Just people talking back and forth. I know that there was maybe some things on the television that was mentioned on ESPN and things like that Twins were going to stay put, and I think that's what I remember when we started to feel some relief.
Sure. Let's fast forward a couple of years. We're going to go to 2002. That was a pretty good season for the Twins. We ended up making it all the way to the American League Championship Series against the Anaheim Angels, and we ended up losing, but we beat the heralded Moneyball Oakland Athletics in a 5-game series. Talk to me about September 20th, 2002, and what you remember about that day.
That was my... It's funny, that was probably, I think that might have been my debut that wasn't a debut. It's funny because the AAA team that I was on in Edmonton, we ended up winning the championship, and the Major League team had already clinched the division. So as a September call-up, we got there pretty late because we had went all the way, and I believe we got there on the 18th. So, I had 2 full days in the big leagues where I just watched the game and didn't get into any action. So once the division was clinched, Gardy's going to rest the big boys and give some of us AAA guys an opportunity. And
sure.
So that was my debut. I hit leadoff and played left field. I'll never forget it. Facing Nate Cornejo, first at bat of the game in the big leagues on the 4th pitch. I got a single up the middle, so I was 1 for 1. Well, here we
there you go.
Well, yeah, so here we end up, we actually score 9 runs in the first inning, so I come up again. So I'm hitting 2 times in the first inning of my debut, and I get a base hit, 2 RBIs, and I score another run. So I was actually the first guy in their Major League debut to have 2 hits, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored in the first inning of a Major League debut. So I really accomplished something. I was excited, and it was brought to my attention, and there was some Hall of Fame people there, and they asked if I could have the bat after the game. They were gonna take it. And I'm a young, big-eyed major league debut playing young player. I'm just excited. I'm going to the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame wants it. You guys can have everything you want.
Yeah, first game in the big leagues. They're going to put my bat in the Hall of Fame, so it's that easy, I guess. But all of a sudden, we're up 9-0. The game means absolutely nothing. It starts to rain in the third inning. It's a travel day. The team's flying into. We're going to Chicago after the game, so it's a downpour. It's not going to stop anytime soon. So the game gets canceled in the third inning. We're not going to play Detroit the rest of the year because it's September the 20th, so the game doesn't count. Neither does the 2 hits, the 2 RBIs, or the 2 runs scored, so it's like it never happened. So, my major league debut was a pretty good one, but it's like it never happened. It didn't exist. It was washed away.
Sure. That had to be a pretty special moment for you, though. Even you're facing Nate Cornejo, you get a single up the middle, you run to first base, you round it, you come back, you got the coach there. What's going through your mind, head, and body when you're standing there on first base, 4th pitch of the game, and you just made your major league debut and you got a base hit? All the emotions go through. Your mind. You're just so satisfied that you were able to play in the major leagues, and to step foot in that beautiful stadium in Detroit and to play on a major league field. Just no one could ever take that away. I finally made it to the big leagues. I've realized my childhood dream, and it's just such a special moment. You think that you're prepared for it, but what you feel is you really can't explain. You think that you're prepared for it, or you think that what's going to feel like, but it's a million times better than what you would imagine, and fortunate, blessed enough that I got that opportunity. Absolutely. So, you mentioned that you're a big-eyed, wide-eyed major leaguer. 2002 season, you've got Torrey Hunter, Joe Nathan, Jock Jones, Corey Koski, Joe Mauer, all these kind of guys. What's that locker room had to be a heck of a lot of fun.
Well, it was. It was a special clubhouse because you have superstar players that had come through our system. Those guys, they played with each other year after year in the minor leagues, and just to see how close-knit they were, it was special to be a part of, something that you didn't really want to get in the way of, but to watch them grow as a team and really care about one another, it was an awesome experience, and the success that they had wasn't a coincidence, and you get young players to get to the big leagues and they start to have success and turn into superstars. I think that was a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. Let's fast forward to almost a year from your major league debut, almost a year exactly. You're playing Cleveland, and something rather funny happened on September 14th, 2003. Yeah. So Johnny Peralta hits a fly ball. Can you set that up and tell us what happens and what the result was?
Sure. Peralta, I'm playing right field, and Peralta hits a ball into right center. So it's a Sunday afternoon game, and in Jacobs Field, the sun was just awful in right field the whole game. And I was almost thinking to myself, if a ball gets hit over to my right side, if I go about 10 steps, it's going to go in the sun. I might be in trouble. Well, wouldn't you think 2 innings later, Peralta hit the ball 10 steps to my right, and so I'm running after it in the gap, and the ball goes into the sun. I take about 3 more steps. The ball comes out of the sun, so I pick it up again and take 3 more steps. The ball's in the sun again. Try to get an angle in the sun. I see the ball at the last second, and when I took the step, the ball went right into the sun, so I had no idea where it was at, and I just felt something hit me in the head, and I don't know if I was unconscious, but like I don't remember like 3 or 4 seconds after that. I just remember Dustin Moore standing beside me. He said, "I caught that. Just want to let you know I caught it." Well, here the ball bounced off my head straight up into the air, and Dustin Moore comes over and makes a running catch off of my head. So the funny thing about it was funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but
Right.
that it ended up being my first major league assist, which is the funny part, I guess.
Right.
And so Gardy comes out with the trainer, and I tell him, I said, "I'm fine. I'm good. I can stay in." And Gardy tells me, "I can see everybody looking like they're not looking in my eyes. They're looking at my head. They're talking to my head, not to me. But they're staring at my head." So Gardy says to me, "Okay, I'll let you stay in the game if you can get your hat on." And I said, "Oh yeah, no problem." So I try to put my hat on, and I just have this big goose egg on the top of my head, on my forehead. And I was like, "Okay, so I can't get the hat on. I guess I should come out of the game because I got a CAT scan and things after just to make sure that I didn't have a skull fracture or something crazy." But
Sure.
I don't know how it hit me in the forehead because I had my hat on and my I wore my hat, the brim of the hat, just above my eyebrows, and I had sunglasses on. So I really don't know how it hit me in the forehead, but luckily Dustin Moore was an unbelievable outfielder. He was able to make the play off of my head. So the funny thing was there was a bunch of people calling me that night and said that, "Hey, you just were on, you were just on SportsCenter, you were just on ESPN." And my aunt called me the next morning, and she goes, "Oh, my goodness, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" She goes, "Well, I was watching the Today Show, and Katie Couric's talking about the ball that bounced off your head." So, I made some national headlines with it and, made some national TV channels.
Maybe
So
not the way you
it ended up
intended.
being so funny. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Looking back at it now, it was such a funny thing. So.
Right. Michael, we got about 7 minutes and some change left here. So you retired as a player, and you you take a path that many former players get into, and we mentioned earlier Jock Jones and Chad Allen being a couple of them. You got into coaching and managing, and you are the manager of the the Pittsburgh Pirates AA team, the Altoona Curve. Now, being from the Pittsburgh area, that's got to be a pretty cool thrill for you. Can you give me about 2 minutes on kind of what got you into being a manager?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't retire. They just stopped calling. Our major league manager likes to say that you don't retire; they stop calling.
Sure.
They stopped calling in after the 2010 season. So in 2011, I didn't do anything. I just sat at home and was just being a father to my, at the time, infant son. And 2012, I wanted to get back into the game somehow, and I knew I wasn't going to do it as a player. My time has passed, and selfishly, I wasn't, I guess, satisfied with the way that my career went, so I wanted to try to maybe have a better career as a coach. So I sent my resume out to, every team, and Pittsburgh's the only team that got back to me and said, we'd have some interest bringing you in, and was able to interview and, got the job with them. And it was for selfish reasons. It was all about, because I wanted to have a better career. But, now it's my main concern, or what drives me is, impacting players to get to the major leagues and help Pittsburgh win a World Series, and trying to give back to the game and give them some knowledge and whatever I can do to help. It's my passion right now. Yeah.
you guys, we got about 5 minutes left. Pirates made a pretty big decision off season in a lot of fans' eyes. They decided to, quote, rebuild. They traded Andrew McCutchen, the face of the franchise. Can you kind of talk to me real quickly about what that's like to trade the face of the franchise to an organization and what message that sends to both minor leaguers and fans?
I think as a fan, if you look at it, it's frustrating. As a Pirate fan, you probably imagined Andrew McCutchen being in a Pirate uniform for the rest of his career. But on the business side, our general manager, Neil Huntington, his number one focus and his number one concern is, well, what can I do to make the Pittsburgh Pirates better? Not only for today, but for the future. And so to see it from both sides, I get to see that a little bit. I think Andrew McCutchen still has unbelievable years ahead of him, and those are going to be with the Giants, or if he becomes a free agent and decides to do that elsewhere. I think the Pittsburgh Pirates are a team of the future, and the future starts tomorrow. They're in a good situation.
Absolutely.
They got some unbelievable young talent back that are Major League ready or are going to have an impact on the Major League team immediately.
Absolutely. Michael, we got about 3 minutes and some change left here. I'd be remiss if, as a Twins fan, I didn't ask you for a Ron Gardenhire story. Can you give me some funny Gardy story, or talk about maybe one time you saw him get ejected and just do something really funny? Can you give me a funny Ron Gardenhire story? You got about 2.5 minutes.
Oh, I don't know if I could just pick one. Just you get to know Gardy, and he's one of the most funniest guys you ever meet. But when the game starts, he's such a competitor, and the one thing that I loved about him was how much he cared for each player. He was just absolutely, he told you the truth. And you could do nothing but respect him for that. So, one time in Kansas City, Gardy comes out and he's arguing a call, and he's trying like heck to get thrown out of the game. And I don't know what the umpire's name was, I forget, but, the umpire knew exactly what Gardy was doing, and Gardy says, "I'm not leaving the field until you throw me out of the game." And Gardy, being as smart as he is, knew that the umpire wasn't going to throw him out of the game. Dropped every name in the book, just basically undressed this umpire, and the umpire still wouldn't throw him out of the game. So Gardy ends up saying that come on, you got to throw me out of this game. There's this game that I need to see on television. I don't know if it was a Monday Night Football game or something, but it starts in 3 minutes, and the umpire then threw him out of the game. So he didn't even get thrown out of the game for because he was so upset about a call, which he was. But the umpire ends up falling for the trick that Gardy tells him. Like, I really don't, I really need to watch this game. So the umpire's like, "Oh, okay. Well, if that's the case, and if you're not mad about the call, then I'm going to throw you out of the game." So Gardy ends up tricking the umpire, and I thought it was hilarious, and Gardy's doing his ranting and raving, and he's throwing his hat down,
Right.
and he's kicking the dirt, and
Right.
he's like, "I got to watch this dang game. I mean, you don't understand how important this game is. I got to see." And he's screaming and yelling, but he's putting a show on for the fans, and it looks like he's really cussing out this umpire, but he's telling him about how much he wants to watch this game, and the umpire throws him out of the game. So on the field, I guess that's the cleanest story that I can say about Gardy. That was
Perfect.
something that that stuck in my mind.
Absolutely. Hey, Michael, we got to wrap up here. We got about 20 seconds left. Hey, thank you so very much for coming on the show. I had a blast coming on, and maybe we'll get together and touch base again sometime within the season. Otherwise, I'll catch you after the season. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. All right, everybody, that was Michael Ryan.